War in ancient times. The word war comes to English from the Old High German language word Werran, to confuse or to cause confusion, through the Old English Werre, meaning the same, and is a state of open and usually declared armed conflict between political entities such as sovereign states or between rival political or social factions within the same state. The Prussian military analyst Carl von Clausewitz, in his book on war, calls it continuation of politics carried on by other means. War is waged by political entities, nations or, earlier, city-states in order to resolve political or territorial disputes and are carried out on the battlefield by armies comprised of soldiers of the contending nations or by mercenaries paid by a government to wage battle. Throughout history, individuals, states, or political factions have gained sovereignty over regions through the use of war. The history of one of the earliest civilizations in the world, that of Mesopotamia, is a chronicle of nearly constant strife. Even after Sargon the Great of Akkad, 2334 to 2279 BCE, unified the region under the Akkadian Empire, war was still waged in putting down rebellions or fending off invaders. The early dynastic period of Egypt, 3150 c. 2613 BCE, is thought to have risen from war when the pharaoh Menes, or Menes, of the south conquered the region of northern Egypt, though this claim is disputed. In China, the Zhou dynasty gained ascendancy through battle in 1046 BCE, and the conflict of the Warring States period, 476 to 221 BCE, was resolved when the state of Qin defeated the other contending states in battle and unified China under the rule of Emperor Shi Huangdi, 221 to 210 BCE. This same pattern holds for other nations throughout time, whether one cites the success of Scipio Africanus, 236 to 183 BCE, in the defeat of Carthage, and so the ascendancy of Rome, or that of Philip II of Macedon, 382 to 336 BCE, in uniting the city-states of Greece. Contending armies of opposing nations have historically settled political disputes on the battlefield, even though, in time, these armies changed in formation and size. Armies contained two types of infantry: shock troops, whose purpose was to close with the opposing forces and try to break their lines, and peltasts, who were more mobile and moved in a looser formation in order to fire long-range weapons at the enemy. According to the historian Simon Anglin, et.al., infantry is the backbone of any army, being the one unit that can attack or defend equally effectively. The majority of battles have turned on the infantry's ability to close with the enemy and kill him, and this holds true, in most cases, even after the introduction of cavalry units and the war chariot. The earliest armies were relatively small corps of shock troops until the introduction of peltast units. At the Battle of Megiddo in 1479 BCE, the Egyptian army numbered 20,000, by the time Shalmaneser III ruled over the Assyrian Empire in 845 BCE. Armies had grown in mass and size. Shalmaneser's forces in his campaigns numbered over 120,000. The Assyrians required large armies owing to their policy of territorial expansion and ruthless suppression of revolt against central rule, and, in this, they epitomized the underlying cause of war, the tribe mentality. The tribe mentality always results in a dichotomy of an us versus a them and engenders a latent fear of the other, whose culture is at odds with, or at least different from, one's own. This fear, coupled with a desire to expand, or protect, necessary resources, often results in war. The first war in recorded history took place in Mesopotamia in circa 2700 BCE between Sumer and Elam. The Sumerians, under command of the king of Kish, in Embragizi, defeated the Elamites in this war and, it is recorded, carried away as spoils the weapons of Elam. At approximately the same time as this campaign, King Gilgamesh of Uruk marched on his neighbors in order to procure cedar for the construction of a temple. While it has been argued that Gilgamesh is a mythological character, the archaeological evidence of the historical king in Embragizi, who is mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh, lends weight to the claim that the latter was also a real historical figure. The region of Sumer traditionally looked upon Elam as the other, to the point where in the UR3 period of Sumer's history, 2047 to 1750 BCE, King Shulgi of Ur, 2029 to 1982 BCE, constructed a great wall to keep the Elamites and Amorites at bay. Warfare certainly did not begin in 2700 BCE, however. The earliest pictographs of armies at war come from the kingdom of Kish, dated to about 3500 BCE. Jericho, which, along with Uruk, has a claim to the title of the world's oldest city, has provided archaeologists with solid evidence that a fortified city stood on the site before 7000 BCE. The walls of the fortress were 10 feet, 3 meters, thick and 13 feet, 3.9 meters, high, surrounded by a moat 30 feet, 9.1 meters, wide and 10 feet, 3 meters, deep, strongly suggesting the importance of defense. The simple bow was in use in Mesopotamia as early as 10,000 BCE, and cemeteries from northern Mesopotamia to Egypt attest to early warfare on a fairly significant scale. Evidence from a conflict which took place at Jebel Sahaba, Egypt, at the so-called Site 117, 59 skeletons were uncovered, all of whom show clear evidence of violent death at about the same time. War in ancient Mesopotamia was waged by infantry shock troops until the introduction of the composite bow from Egypt. By 1782 BCE, Lower Egypt had been largely taken by the Hyksos, a Semitic people of unknown origin, who introduced superior technological advances into Egypt. Along with the war chariot, bronze weapons, and new tactics, the Hyksos brought the advance of the composite bow. Prior to the coming of the Hyksos, the Egyptian army had used simple bows of wood or cane with a range of around 33 feet, 100 meters, while the composite bow was capable of delivering a mighty blow out to 656 feet, 200 meters. The development of the composite bow would change the way in which war was waged, in that shock troops who were massed closely together made easy targets for archers, while looser formations invited decimation by opposing shock troops. This led to changes in battle formations generally and the development of military tactics.